crack myself up. I still haven't found my first Blantons.
That's different. I really like that.
They're like together, like peas and carrots.
That's funny. Sometimes accidents are good things. Peychaud's or Peychaud's or Peychaud.
This is not what I expected.
Hello, it's Bourbcast night, and here we are, and we're getting on into the series. We started off with the Bardstown Fusion last week, and I'll say it again, it was a nice pour. Nice. But yeah, it's a good one. I like it. This week we're going to do the Discovery series. Then after that, we're going to get into this one. This was the Pfeiffer Pavitt Reserve. This is a wine cask. And then we're going to do another wine cask, the Prisoner, to wrap out the series at the end of September. So, but today, it's the Discovery. Now, I remember when I got this, I was doing a job up in Cleveland, and my client and I went into an OHLQ just for funsies, and we found this one, and I had heard a lot about it. People were talking about it, like they always do. And I remember buying it and going, whew, that's pricey. And the price hasn't come down at all. Since I saw it, then it's still a back shelfer. It's still one of those that they hide away so you can't grab it and walk out. But we're going to find out what makes it so special. I have not opened it. That was the first crack. I had taken the foil off to pre-prepare, but I have not opened it. All right, I'm going to let this open up a little bit. Let's put this up here. That is a heavy cork. I mean, maybe that's what makes the bottle so expensive. The cork's so heavy. I mean, it's heavy. You know what? I'll leave it off. I'll leave it off so it can open up a little bit. All right. So, Bardstown, of course, has a number of bottles they do in a series. We talked about the Fusion Discovery, the Collaborative and Distillery Collection, also the Origin series. The Discovery series highlights the art of blending, creating exciting expressions that together are greater than the sum of its parts. This is their description of the Discovery series. Through artfully combining rare and exemplary whiskeys they discover from all over the world, the series pushes the boundaries of innovation by creating completely unique flavors and styles. Each release gives you something to discover. Hence, Discovery series. As an example, Discovery 1 was a blend of 12-year Kentucky bourbon with accents of older and younger bourbons. It was the same for the next few, and then for 4, 5, and 6, they went up to 4 different bourbons that they blended together. For number 8, they changed it up a bit. They blended Kentucky bourbon, 2 Indiana ryes, and an aged Canadian whiskey. And then they added 5 oak staves, ranging from French oak and Rioja barrels. And for number 9, or Rioja barrels, for number 9, they used a Georgia bourbon, Kentucky bourbon, 17-year Tennessee whiskey, and some Canadian rye. And they've got a new series out now. It's a barrel series. It's a West Virginia barrel company. And that's got a little bit of Canadian rye in it, too. So they're really playing with flavors from everywhere to do these series. Anyway, they're up to Series 10 now on Discovery, while the Fusion series is supposed to end at number 9. And I haven't seen number 9 out yet. Maybe somebody has, but I haven't seen it out yet. This, I have not heard that it's going to end, so the Discovery series could continue on as the Fusion series either just stops, ceases being, or is reimagined as something else. Because the Fusion series, I mean, that Fusion I had the other night, or last week, was pretty good. I liked it. It was nice. All right. So this one is the number 3. It's got 3 different bourbons in it, and they have 3 different mash bills. The first one is an Indiana bourbon. It's a 13-year, 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley. The second, and it's 45% of it. It's almost half. Then 32% of it is a 13-year Kentucky bourbon, Corn in the mash bill is 74%. Rye is 18%. Malted barley is 8%. So the first two are kind of high ryes. Because anything over 18, I call a high rye. And that was 21 and 18. But this one, the 23% of the 10-year Kentucky bourbon is 75% corn, only 13% rye, and up there, 12% malted barley. All right, so that is what I have on this one, and it's time to get into it. Time to get jiggy with it. All right. Whoa. That's almost wine-like. Very oaky to me. Because, I mean, one of the things that when I smell oak, it reminds me of when I was into wines. I would go to wineries and I would taste their wines, and we were doing blogs about it then. But I was behind the camera. We had a host. I wasn't the guy in front of the camera. That's why it was so much better. Anyway, so I decided I was going to stop the wine thing, and I got into some other stuff like gins and vodkas and whatever, and then in like 2018, 2019, maybe 2017, started getting into the bourbons a little bit more, and now look at where we've come, baby. Okay. Yeah, so that oak reminds me of the wines, which just brings back that dark, rich red wine nose to me, and that's what this reminds me of. Yeah, a lot. Definitely some fruit notes for sure, like black cherry for sure. Definitely black cherry. But there's a lighter note too, maybe some plum. But it's mostly black cherry. Oh yeah. Now I did write down their tasting notes. So, layered maple, burst of cinnamon, ripe pear. No. On top of aged leather, comprise this complex aroma. I'm not getting a lot of maple. If I really look for it, I can find it. I mean, that's the cinnamon for sure. Pear, no, but black cherry, yes. Aged leather, okay. It is, they call it a complex aroma, and I would agree with that. The nose on this is very nice, very, very wide. I mean, you could sit here for an hour and pick out different notes as it opens up, as it does its thing. Yeah, I get the leather too, but that black cherry is just, it's not pear. Pear is too sweet. I'll give it plum. Plum is sweet, but it's darker sweet. I'm not going to say pear. Wow. All right. Over the lips and through the gums. Whoa, that is magnificent. Whew. The proof on this one was 110. The proof on the Fusion was 98. So this is a little warmer. And it is benefiting from it. There's flavor coming from everywhere. Now the finish isn't so great. The finish moves off into that leather note. It's not as long as I would like it to be. Hints of it are, but most of it, it was almost like somebody took the volume dial and went, nyeh, and turned it down. There's one note still lingering, and I'm going to say it's that leather, but everything else just was gone really fast. Now let me see what I can pull out of it. I have not read all of the notes. I only read the nose, and I only read it right there with you. I hadn't read it before. I just copied it and pasted it and hit print. All right. Again, very oaky. It's very complex. There's just a lot of layers of flavor here. There's definitely a fruit note, although I'm not getting the black cherry as much. It's more earthy, like dates. Not as sweet as a raisin. Cinnamon for sure, popping out at me. I'm not catching a lot of vanillas or honeys or anything like that. It's not a sweet pour. But I didn't get that on the nose either. I didn't think it was sweet. There was a sweetness on the nose. And they went so far as to say pear, and I'm like, no. But it's not as complex as like the Old Forester 1920, the new Riff Single Barrel, the new Smoke Wagon Small Batch. It's not as complex as that. But it's got a nice complexity, and there are flavors coming from a lot of different places. They tend to merge together in the finish, and they tend to dissipate collectively. Except for that one note. One note that's just hanging on. It's still there. Very long finish on one note. Not all of it, just one. All right. Okay. I took a bigger sip that time. I wanted to really get it in there, and I did catch some honey on the back of my palate. It's not up where I normally taste things, it's in the back. But there is some honey there. There is just a very, very slight sweetness. Now let's see what they say about their tasting notes. A warm palate, I'll agree with that. Reveals tannic oak, I will agree with that. Embedded in rich flavor, yes. They don't really give a whole lot of notes. That's all they gave. Warm palate, tannic oak, embedded in rich flavor. And it is. It's rich, it's tannic, and it's warm. This would not be one that I would normally put in summertime. It's a nice fall drink, a winter drink. This would be really good, I think, in an old-fashioned or a Manhattan, but particularly an old-fashioned. Old-fashioned, I like a smoked old-fashioned. And the oak in this, the tannic oak in this, versus the sweetness of the simple syrup or sugar cube or whatever it is you want to use, I think that they would work together very, very well. Now, should you take an expensive bottle like this, and I don't remember what I paid, it was 120 some maybe, it was up there. It was, at the time, I think Kentucky Owl Confiscated was 125. And I want to say this was a little north of that, or right around the same. I don't remember what I paid for it. Anyway, it was more than I was comfortable with, but at the time, why not? What the hell? And the client that was with me bought one too, and I don't know if he's ever opened it. So anyhow, normally an expensive pour like this, I wouldn't even think about putting it in an old-fashioned, but this one seems to be tailor-made for an old-fashioned. And I may even take it upstairs tonight and make one out of it and see if I was right, because I think I'm going to be right on this. The richness of this pour, with the sweetness of a simple syrup and a little bit of the bitters, and that's what I'm thinking. But we'll put it on water first and see if I agree with myself. I normally do. All right. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't agree with myself. And this is another one of those, too, that I wonder what it's going to be like after it's been open a little bit. This is a fresh crack. Most of my Bourbcasts are on a fresh crack. What's it going to be like after it sits here and opens up? You know, there have been several that took time. And I liked them better over time. Will this one be the same way? I like this. The complexity is nice, but if the complexity allows for some more of the sweeter notes to come out, like that honey that I got on the back of the palate, that would be exciting to me. So, okay, let's do the water test. I'm going to do about a milliliter of water here. Ish. Okay. They do have notes on the finish as well, but I have, well, you know what? Let's read that. Their finish is remarkable, enduring finish rounds out our premier bourbon blend. And this, again, is for number 3. They're all going to be just a little bit different, particularly as you get closer to number 10. Number 10, they started to experiment more, and they started putting in Canadian whiskeys and all that stuff. And so it's going to be different as you go along the Discovery series. Potentially, they're all going to be a little bit different, but they definitely got different after about 5 or 6. Moving up in there. All right. Putting that water in there. All right. Now, so this could give me a premiere of what it's going to be after it's set in the bottle for a little bit. Or not. We'll see. Adding water actually dried out my mouth a little bit. Definitely a very acidic pour. It improved the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel was not something that I noticed before, but when I put water on it, it definitely made it more silky. Much nicer. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't even notice it, so it didn't bother me. It wasn't like it was thin or anything like that, but adding some water to it definitely made it a little more viscous, and I do like that. All right. As far as flavors, I don't notice there's more flavor, but I don't know that it's different flavor. I don't know that it did anything different to it, pulled out anything special. Still, tannic is a great word. They said it, and I agree. It's a very tannic pour, and maybe that's another reason why it reminded me of some of those red wines that I used to drink. Now, that was on the nose, but it still does that rich, deep oak and that tannic type of feel to it, or taste to it, just it reminds me of wine. Now, the flavor is nothing near wine, but it reminds me of the way that wine felt in my mouth. I don't know if that makes any sense. It does to me. And that's what matters. Okay. All right. Still just a slight little bit of honey on the back of the palate. It didn't change much. I am getting maybe a little bit more of that black cherry on water, matching the nose just a little bit, not like it was. On the nose, the black cherry was just screaming at me. On the palate, with a little bit of water, it's there. The plum is not, but the black cherry is, just a little bit. It's a nice pour. It's not as delicious. It's not as rewarding to me as my Fusion was, which, you know, considering the price point, is a little bit disappointing, to be truthful. But number 9, number 10, number 8 in the series, I'm not going to tell you not to buy them because it is a good pour. It's a complex pour. This is number 3. It's still very immature in the series. And I don't know. I'm not going to tell you not to get it. I don't love this one like I did the Fusion. The Fusion was a great pour. This one, number 3, is just, I mean, it's good and it's complex and there's a bunch of things happening. But at first, that first taste that I had, it seemed complex and it seemed like flavor was coming from everywhere. And as I get into it, I don't think that it's flavor that's coming from everywhere as much as presence. It's just present everywhere on the palate. That's a tough way to describe it, and you may not have any idea what I'm talking about. But it's there. And it's formidable. And it's not thin. And there are flavors coming all over, but they're not 3-dimensional flavors. They're 2-dimensional flavors. So, would I buy this again? Yeah, but I wouldn't buy a number 3 again. I'd go past probably number 7 and go like to 8, 9, or 10, maybe 7. 7 was 4 bourbons. So yeah, I'd start it at number 8 for me. If I found a number 8 on the shelf and That I would probably buy. This one, I don't know if I would buy it again. I like it, but I think I'm going to like it better when it's in a cocktail, honestly. Which is rare for me to say that. But in this case, I think it's appropriate. All right. One final test. Get it on a gorgeous ice sphere. It's a gorgeous ice sphere. All right. I don't want to go too crazy because this is just a heavy cork. It's amazing how heavy this cork is. I need to read about the cork. This one was not as heavy. This one was the one that was hard to get off. Yeah, there's no weight to this. Oh, there it went. I have no idea where that went. So I'm just going to set this down here and pretend it didn't happen. But this cork is heavy. It's probably the heaviest cork of any cork I've ever uncorked. It's crazy. I wonder if the new ones, like the 8, 9, and 10, I wonder if the corks are so heavy in that one too. I have no idea. All right. Spoon! Paul is watching. I'm sorry. I'm not using the finger technique tonight. I'm spooning it. Spooning. Okay. I did tell you once before that at 50 years old, I told my family this is as mature as I'm ever going to get, right? I did tell you this. Did I not? I'm pretty sure I did. This is as mature as I'm going to get. This is as good as it's ever going to get. I'm going to be 75 years old someday, 80 years, if I make it that long, 80 years old, peeing in my pants going, ah, smell that? or like Steve Martin in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, where he just stops and goes, oh, just enjoy it. My mother used to talk about a guy who she worked with. It was an old man, and he was indiscriminate about where he would pass gas. He didn't care. He may not have even known. Just put it around everywhere. I want to be that guy. I want to be a Walmart and people look at me and go, like I said, this is as mature as I'm going to get. Okay. All right. So, on an ice sphere, it did tend to bring out more flavors, which is odd. Normally on ice, things are muted, right? And maybe that's what this needed, is it needed to be muted. But I can still tell you, I think it would be magnificent in an old-fashioned. It's a shame to pay over $120 for something you're going to mix in a cocktail. But it is what it is. I pull no punches here in the Burb Cave. To the Burb Cave! No, 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 no. There's some sweeter notes coming out now. More of those typical style notes that you'd get. I mean, don't forget, we got 2 of these that are in here that are a high rye. 18% and higher. So it doesn't surprise me that it's this tannic, but the oakiness of it surprised me of it. I don't know how long it was aged. I don't think it said anywhere on any of the profiles that I looked how long it was aged. But some of the sweetness is coming back out. Definitely that black cherry's back. Maybe that plum is back too. That's the sweet side of it. I'm catching a little caramel. Definitely some cinnamon. Yeah, old fashioned. Yeah. Okay. This is one of those rare occasions that I like it best on ice. Doesn't happen very often, but on this one, I like it best on ice. There's more flavor. It really expresses itself better. I like this one best on ice. All right. That'll do it for us tonight. Next week, we're going to get back into the next one in the series of Bardstown. This is the Pfeiffer Pavitt Reserve. This is a wine cask. Straight bourbon whiskey finished in Pfeiffer Pavitt Cabernet Sauvignon barrels. I have a history of enjoying bourbons that are finished in cab barrels and port barrels. Port sherry, the one that disappointed me was not the one that was supposed to disappoint me, and that was the Old Elk. But it opened up and it got better. On fresh crack, I didn't care for it. So we'll see. We'll see what this one does next week, right here on Beautiful Bourbon. You'll check us out, Facebook, of course, and YouTube at Beautiful Bourbon, and of course Instagram, which I don't use anymore because it's really freaking boring. It is. It's boring. It's boring. It was boring to begin with, and I just thought I'd try it, but no, it's boring. All right, so hey, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week.